So a couple things to chat about and then obviously turn it over to you. Let's begin with an update on recycling and yard waste situation, which is not okay. Hopefully we'll be getting better. We have a bad contractor in Potomac Disposal, someone that our county DEP had fined $1.25 million before the latest situation. So we knew we had problems with this particular contractor for some time. And now we're in a place where we need to compensate for their inability to have drivers. We are going to be able to pick up yard trim starting this week. We are going to be picking up trash. The recycling is a challenge without them because they have the trucks. And our recycling operation requires a certain kind of truck, and they have them. And so we apparently, according to DEP, continue to need to use them. We will not be using them, hopefully, going forward. Their contract is up in March, and I cannot imagine a scenario in which they will be asked to bid or they would bid. But I do believe we need to recover every fine that has been imposed upon them. To date, those fines have not been collected. They have been charged. They are on notice with respect to them, but they have not been collected. It does not serve us to have people who do not fulfill their minimum requirements to our residents. So we will have a conversation about that on June 29th before the T&E committee. But I really feel like our residents have not been well served in terms of understanding what's been going on, understanding all the work that is going on behind the scenes to try and rectify the situation, and not knowing day to day whether or not these fundamental county services are going to be provided. My staff and I have spent more time communicating with our residents than we should be, because this is a DEP responsibility, and on every listserv there should have been an understanding of exactly what the situation is and what to expect. So that's number one. Let's stay with solid waste. We have a report on the Dickerson incinerator fire that was released, I believe, on Friday, that basically says there were things that happened that should not have happened. The fire itself is something that happens a lot in facilities of this nature. Not being able to see the fire, however, was a particular problem there because the pile was so large that one could not see the fire taking place until it was too late, until the fire was too big. We have other issues. The sprinkler system was not working. Now I'm told this morning by our DEP director that even if the sprinkler system had been working, it is not such that it would have made a dent in that kind of fire. But nonetheless, I am hopeful that our county or the, quote, authority will impose a fine, because these are fundamental issues that absolutely have to be there, and our people have to have confidence that this facility is going to work well and state of the art, and obviously it hasn't. Now, I believe going forward that they've made a commitment to invest something on the order of $16 million in upgrades to this facility to ensure that it is closer to state of the art. But needless to say, public confidence is not at an all-time high with respect to this facility, and it was always a controversial facility from day one. And so it's important to go the extra mile. And it raises the question of the authority versus the county and the role of the authority. And so I will be looking to ensure that the authority exercises its full authority on this matter. but we had too much on the tipping floor. And we actually need to move towards a zero waste policy. It is a legitimate goal, one that I've championed in part by promoting composting, because food waste is such a significant part of our waste stream. And if we get a handle on food waste, we'll certainly reach our goal of 70% recyclable, but we ought to have a larger goal of getting to zero waste. We're going to be looking for a new chief of the Division of Solid Waste. I'm told by our director that that's a national search, and clearly both of these issues arise in the context of our Division of Solid Waste. So we need somebody of high caliber to take on these responsibilities going forward. Let's move to another aspect of the environment. We will have a resolution introduced tomorrow basically saying that our county affirms its commitment to the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. I was proud when I first joined the council. I went to a National Association of Counties meeting and I literally signed our county onto the Cool Counties Pledge, which made a commitment back then in 2009, or if not before, to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by the year 2050. That commitment remains in place, and I'm proud of the work that my colleagues and I have done with respect to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. We were called upon in that resolution and in the resolutions that followed here at the council to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 10% every 5 years. We have reduced our greenhouse gas emissions in the county by 27%. We're well ahead of schedule. We have reduced our county greenhouse gas emissions by 67%. And we are, as you know, carbon neutral. And we've adopted some of the most forward-thinking policies in the United States, making us one of the most sustainable communities in the country. But it is, in this moment in time, important to simply reaffirm that it's not okay to walk from the Paris Accord, and local governments and state governments have a greater responsibility now to ensure that our planet survives. Why don't I turn it to you guys, see what's on your mind.
The solid waste chief, who's the current chief? And
I don't believe we have a current chief. We have an acting chief.
So who's the acting chief?
Uh-huh. I agree with you. No, I apologize. I don't.
How long has the county had this position unfilled with a permanent employee?
I don't know the answer to that either.
What's been the performance of the incinerator from the time that these problems were flagged up? Has there been any recent fires that you know of, anything?
There was, as you know, this Covanta had a problem in Northern Virginia, but not at our facility. So they had acknowledged, I think, publicly that they underinvested in this facility. They allowed the boiler to go. They were not attending to business. And they've said as much. And now they have said, we're committed going forward to investing in it and making sure it is.
Are you going to consider, is there any way to consider changing operators?
Well, I do believe that their contract comes up for renewal, and there will be serious conversation with respect to it. And again, it's also the role of the authority versus it's the role. So to me, it calls to mind the question of the role of the authority versus the county, and whether or not we still need the authority to be the middle person in this operation, given that ultimately the responsibility is to our residents, and we are responsible at the end of the day to our residents. And so to have this middleman in this has always struck me as peculiar at this moment in time. In any event, I can understand perhaps in the initial phase that there was more of a compelling argument. I don't know if it's still needs to be our organizational structure.
Given the first two items on the agenda here, do you still have confidence in Director Felt?
I do. I do.
These things could not have been foreseen or avoided or acted on in a more aggressive way.
What I can tell you in hindsight is that I wish they had been. What I can tell you is that I think on Potomac Disposal, we had enough indications of their weakness as a contractor to begin looking for alternatives, in my judgment, some time ago, so that we don't have not facing the situation that we're facing today, where an utter failure has occurred to the detriment of our residents. And I promise you, we hear from our residents with respect to this, and they say, I'm sorry, I pay a lot of taxes in Montgomery County, and I expect my trash to be picked up. And I say to you, I find it very difficult to respond. Yes, you should be angry. This is not okay.
What were the fines not collected?
Why? You'll have to ask that to the department and to the county executive. So I don't want to characterize their thoughts with respect to it. They sent them, quote, cure letters. They documented that they were not complying with the contract, and they felt that that was an appropriate response.
The fines were an appropriate response.
The cure letters were, we're putting you on notice. You are now eligible to be fined, or if you will, now you have crossed the line and you are subject to these fines. We ask you to cure your deficiencies. That was the steps that were taken by DEP.
When were those fines levied?
You have a copy of the letter, so you now you know as much as I know with respect to the details.
Does that go back to the problems they had years ago, or does that just go back to what's happened in the recent?
No, that's the point of this conversation, is that these were fines that were imposed, if you will, or not imposed, fines that were earned. What's the word that we should be saying here? That were subject to, their failure subjected them to these fines prior to March, prior to this most recent situation, which is why you ask yourself, is there more that could have been done?
Do you have any idea what the underlying reason for the collapse of this company was in terms of this was staffing shortage, right? This was a company that, you know, workers had negotiated this contract, Laborers International. They were, I guess, they were forced to start paying a certain level of wage. Assuming these were halfway attractive jobs, why? I don't understand why they're not filling these jobs. Do you have any idea what's going on there? Because I can't get an answer out of the union or the company.
So what I was told was that it was a matter of paying wages, that they were not attracting, they weren't paying enough to get people to drive their trucks. I mean, you can get people to do work if you pay them whatever the going rate is, it seems to me. So the other companies are apparently able to hold on to their drivers. As you know, these guys had a history of not paying wages. So that's what I was told. No, they're still in business, and that's part of the problem, is that we need their trucks. So I asked today, can we take their trucks? I was told no, we can't take their trucks. So we're sort of, it appears as if we are stuck with these people for a period of time.
Do you know if they have contracts with other municipalities?
I don't. Hard to imagine.
And because of the nature of the dual recycling streams, you need these specialized trucks. There's no way that you could like send a truck through to get one stream and send a second truck in to get the second stream.
What I've been told is we need these trucks. That's what I've been told.
Have they been responding to county officials? Have they been meeting with county officials about this problem? Have they been present?
They have, my understanding is there have been a number of meetings, and my understanding, of course, is that there have been a number of meetings with the other drivers, with the other companies. So we have 3 contractors, and so basically we're asking the other contractors to step in and take over everything but the recycling. So they're going to be out of the yard trim, and they're going to be out of trash. But since we need them for the recycling, they're going to continue to do that, and it's been represented to me that they will, in fact, be able to do that. So the scope of their work has been reduced by 2/3, and what DEP and the director has said to me is that they believe that Potomac Disposal will be able to handle this remaining 1/3, and our citizens will, in fact, be taken care of completely.
Montgomery Parks has chipped in. I believe the city of Rockville has also chipped in some of the trash and yard waste pickup, correct?
That I don't know.
Based on Twitter.
Based on Twitter, yeah. Certainly must be good then. Must be good info. What else?
Unrelated topic.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the state's plan to sue President Trump over the emoluments clause? This is a risk for the state.
We have an independent attorney general who fortunately does not need the governor's approval. That was one of the first things that state legislature passed this past session, was to give him his independence to do what he felt was right by our residents. I'm a big fan of our Attorney General, and I personally have found it offensive, the president's relationship with his economic holdings and the extent to which those economic holdings are benefited by his presidency. So I fully support the Attorney General.
Do you think there's any risk to the state, and perhaps federal backlash, Trump penalizing us on federal projects that the state may need money for?
Again, I think we have an independent attorney general. I feel our governor has effectively had the president's back by not criticizing him even when he cuts NIH and threatens the Chesapeake Bay and other things that many of us believe he should be standing up to the president for. But as I think all of us know, it is difficult to predict what this president will do in any moment. I had a conversation this morning prior to our meeting with our county attorney. As many of you know, we have a big issue with flights coming over Montgomery County, which had not previously been coming over Montgomery County, but in fact been going over Virginia. And now they are laser-like over Montgomery County and causing great distress, and causing more than great distress, causing a great diminution in quality of life for many of our residents. There is a strong belief that FAA did not comply with the law in terms of its implementation of this change. Other communities have sued FAA on that basis. There is an outside counsel, Denton's law firm, who has done a lot of work in this regard. And our county executive is going to be submitting a supplemental budget request of approximately $7,500 to get a legal memorandum from Denton's with respect to what possible recourse the county could have on behalf of our residents. I have been urging the county executive and the county attorney to file an action similar to District of Columbia and Phoenix, and this at least gets us one step closer to that, and I think is a positive move, and one that is respectful of the incredible work that this Quiet Skies Coalition has done. If you haven't followed them, these are people that have done incredible research and yet go about their work in a very nice manner. It's sort of the best of civic engagement. They're unfailingly polite and unfailingly nice and persistent. And that's often a very hard balance to strike, but they really do it so well. My hat's off to them. And they have compiled all this information that leads us to believe that there is, in fact, grounds for taking on the FAA, and we need to do that. Ultimately, I think this gets resolved at the congressional level, but I believe that it's appropriate for us to stand up for our residents, and I hope we will do that.